Well, a total mistake that I had a test got 10 views, and someone said, well, 10 views is better than nothing. And I had a couple minutes. Again, I'm Cliff Bates, and this is a impromptu live streamish on, it's 3 p.m. Europe time, Central European time, and that means 9 a.m. in the Eastern Standard Time and East Coast. And West Coast is probably like, my God, if it's 9, it means like it's about between 6 to 7 in the morning. Someone's waking up and having their coffee. So good morning in the West Coast. Good morning in the United States. Yay. I'm just saying hi. Congratulations. Life is life. Those of us in Europe, good afternoon. This is a Saturday brunch. Usually, maybe I promised I'd do Sunday brunches if I did any, but we're doing it. This is my only attempt to do this kind of like, fool around a little bit with you guys. Everyone was telling me I should buy this book, Gene Sharp's Dictatorship to Democracy. I remember reading it about it as undergraduate. This was published originally back then. It was, my God, it was published in a online form or something. It was published originally in paperback or published in Great Britain in 2011. It was originally published in 2002. The so-called color revolutions, theories of the color revolutions, and argue the non-violent democracy, non-violent revolution. And I decided it finally came in the mail. I ordered it, and I quickly read it because it's an easy read. And to be honest, it's nothing new. I mean, anyone who understands politics understands this is kind of like cheerleading. The problem with this is, I hate to say it, it's too optimistic. And if we look at the color revolutions, and this is, a couple people have done, the question is, are the color revolutions a big giant CIA plot? No. Anyone who thinks it is some kind of giant conspiracy theory no. The CIA isn't that competent. Oh, but we heard Victoria Nolan Vicki Nolan was bragging, showing off. Of course, the CIA types are claiming they're doing such things when they couldn't collectively masturbate effectively. So please, let's not. Rumsfeld's. Go look at Rumsfeld's little wonders. I don't know where it's hiding up here. Donald Rumsfeld, his little book of Proverbs. It's hiding up here someplace. Rumsfeld rules, where one of the rules is never attribute to a conspiracy which can be more easily explained by mass incompetence or incompetence, gross incompetence, or maybe I'm adding the word there. No, there was no conspiracy. Now, what happened in all these revolutions is you had discontent, fundamental social discontent, because the existing system was broken. And this is a universal phenomenon. When people are unhappy, there's discontent, and they're angry at the rulers. When the rulers are not able to effectively do this, there's going to be elements of discontent. And some event can trigger it. Now, do outside countries' intelligence agencies sometimes try to take advantage of those triggering moments, either to trigger them and to do that? Yes, both left and the idea that the CIA is, my God, the freaking Russians did it. It's called active measures. I mean, my God, the Russians used the racial issues in America, racial, sexual, and other issues in America, all through the 1940s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, to delegitimize and create an attempt to delegitimize and demoralize a population. This is, go look. Again, I'm going to say, what is that? I forget his name. The ex-KGB agent who has tons of videos online where he goes on the question of active things. Now, is everything a Soviet plot? No. The new revelation by the FBI that was just released about the fact that the FBI themselves now, the so-called WikiLeaks about the DNC papers were done by Mark Rich, a disgruntled DNC employee. Not the Russians, but the Russian metaphor was generated, well, because of plausibility, plus it was a way to demonize the opponent, okay? And I think this is the problem in that sense. This is we have a we want to misread things. I look at the orange, what happened in the Orange Revolution or all the so-called color revolutions, as popular uprisings of discontent against authoritarian or broken governments. I mean, to what degree were the Yellow Jackets in France another color revolution? It was. Just because, we don't talk about it, the Yellow Vests revolt as a color thing, because this wasn't a CIA project. It wasn't in other words, it's, the idea that only that things that we think are done against authoritarian or black, non pro-Western governments are orange, and where movements against the Western or liberal states are, to what degree is what's going on in Germany a kind of green revolution? In other words, another revolution. ADF is a kind of revolutionary moment in that public change. And the problem with this book is that it assumes that this is all going to go hunky-dory lefty. No, I'm sorry. Social change can go many ways. Anyone who studied what happened in the 1930s knows that this can go both radically left or radically right. And I think in many ways, this is why the French election results are going to be very telling for those of us who are going to be looking at this, because I think that what happened in France is going to be the radical left getting the dominant position in the way. This actually may be the best thing that happened for National Rally. Le Pen, because I think the strategy of the idiotic strategy of Macron was that he thought that Le Pen was going to get the dominant majority, and that they were going to kind of, that they really thought that her vote would be the larger. They would conspire to block her, but they kind of really wanted her to kind of win, in a sense, that be the largest bloc, and that put her in a government, and then show her as incompetent, and then have to replace her and have to remove her. That is a thing that I think that maybe Macron and the liberals and that thought that would be possible. I'm not sure that. I think that is. They thought they could have blocked her with the traditional center, a center coalition. But no, what happened was the left, the radical left took over the left-wing bloc, where the size of the radical left composed to the size of the socialists, the Republican socialists, are just minuscule. So therefore, the left-wing, the radical left, run by Mélenchon, the leader of the party, is a radical left. He agrees far more. There's far more agreement with National Rally on a lot of anti-European things. In fact, in many ways, I can never say his right, Marichon, he is more pro-Russian than everyone thinks. Le Pen's really a Russian agent, right? This is why the investigation of election kind of to kind of do it. But in many ways, the left-wing party, the radical left, is far more pro-Russian than that, and that is going to be dominating. It's going to have you're going to see a very anti-EU, very anti-neoliberal, and very pro-Russian agenda coming from France, and it's going to by the government, the new government. I think it's going to be a left-wing minority government imposed upon it. I think the coalition breakdown. I think any attempt to create a centrist minority will have a challenge by the fact that the left has such a radical, clear winning plurality. So what will happen is that Macron will try to create a center, take some from the left. But the problem is that the radical left will not budge on this. And the way the leader of the Left Alliance has behaved now after this has sent, and the reactions in France are just out of the world, totally unstable, totally things. So I don't want to talk too much about this. This is a little Sunday brunch, and I didn't want to go too long because I just wanted to get on, and it's a last minute idea. So we have to think about what social change really brings, and we have to understand about social change and political change. Now, another thing was there was a very good video by what's his? Come on, I can never say his name. Watson. Paul Joseph Watson. This is on July 13th. I think he did it July 13th, where the video was called "The Truth of Not the Truth About the UK Election." I was shocked at what I discovered. Okay, and that is, I think that is a very good. It's a very good, shocking a video about the demographic change and how demographic change that the administrative the civil service lied about demographics from starting in 2002, and the reporter saying, "Oh my God, if you look at these indicators, the population of England is much higher than what they said it was, about 10 at least 10 to 15 million more." And that the civil service, or the permanent civil service, misled the people, misled the society. And the fact that there are no accountability, this is the deep state theory, this is the administrative state. The English civil service is the logic of what we in America speak of the administrative state, and what the radical left speaks of the deep state. The deep state normally is what we people refer to the security service state, okay, the military, things like this. And the administrative state is simply the bureaucratic, permanent bureaucracy that's not accountable. England has a problem with this, and this is because they lie. Now, anyone who knows the downfall of Margaret Thatcher because of the poll tax was primarily done because the civil service lied to her, misled her on key information, and they did so to derail her because they didn't like her policy. She started not to listen to them and started wanting reform, and she was kind of always a troublemaker from the civil service's point of view. The nature of the civil service fundamentally changed from the time of the 80s. It is still mostly the Oxbridge set. Now it is not. It is much more it's multiculti, more urban Londony, more bread brick, and more diverse, more filled with the rainbow of. I don't want to get too outrageous. Women, minorities, BIPOCs, LBGTs, diverse over the last 30 years. I mean, you can go see that. Go look at, let's say, the early 2004, 2005 British series, In the Thick of It, which shows the nature of Westminster, the parliamentary structure, and then compare the civil service of the original Yes Minister to the civil service actors in the thick of it, and you see the difference. You see the cultural difference of who's there and the character, and therefore the nature of the regime changes. The administrative regime changes because of the change of culture, and that's not a good thing. In fact, you have a more arrogant, you have a just as arrogant as the old civil service, permanent civil service, but you have less qualified, less intelligence. Well, maybe that's maybe the level of intelligence may be the same, but rather the ideology, this kind of more growing left-wing ideology in that sense. Now, even in Yes Minister, there was this a couple scenes where there was a acknowledged reality between the left wing, how the left wing radicals and the civil service both intersected their interests to frustrate reform of the ecosystem. Okay, that was one of the very important lessons of the Yes Minister in the BBC series. But in the 2000 series, late 2000, early 2010, series in the thick of it, it was more kind of a very shocking thing that it was that you had a left-wing media, a left-wing civil service culture, and dominated by a prime minister's office who used bullying and aggressive tactics. So I mean, okay, so that's we can look at that issue about the nature of what happened, the change of the permanent state, and what's happening here, and how the civil service lied. And I think the civil service lied during all through the Blair years, trying to make it look not bad, try to drop the immigration issue. But the problem was you can't lie to people's eyes, and this is what ultimately drove the reaction against European Union membership and led to Brexit, because the argument was that the fault was EU. Okay, the EU membership was, we couldn't stop it because the EU membership. Now the argument is we can't stop it because of the European courts that we're still a member of. Okay, the human rights treaties that we're still part of. Right. This is what frustrated that. No, it's ultimately because of the European the administrative elites and the political elites are engaged for this economic and neoliberal / green agenda to deindustrialize and to how can I say it? It's to make it so that only the very rich can live comfortably. Return to the Middle Ages, right? A neo-feudalism, a return to a neo-feudalism, a techno environmentalist neo-feudalism. That's a very dark moment thinking like that. So, I mean, we're at 20 minutes almost. I don't want to go too long. I just wanted to say hi to everyone and think about this and maybe give you a time to kind of reflect. The other point I would like to think in my last couple minutes is something that is very similar to what happened in the French election and the English election was the role of the Muslim voter. The Muslim voter voted for the left, the radical left, even the secular Muslim, the secularized Muslims who are not necessarily hardly identified with strong and radical positions, even they voted tactically with the left. Okay, so in England and in Britain and in France, this is the rise of, you can see the significant impact of immigration and Islamic immigration on the impact of the left's victory, and this will force the left to continually to placate or to win over or to keep those voters or those constituency base happy. Otherwise, what will happen is that they may form their own parties. Okay, the radical French does not want that. They get this is their moment of opportunity. Labor thinks that the Starmer gang thinks this is their opportunity in that sense, and I think that this is going to create a problem. I think this is going to be a problem that the right, the Europeanized English and Scottish and Irish are, Irish, English, Welsh, all the true populations are going to be demographically squeezed out and made marginalized. And the same thing has happened with France in that sense. And this is going to lead to what I saw with another thing was an interview a couple days ago, an old interview by Glenn Loury and Charles Murray talking about white backlash. You can find these on YouTube, both the Paul Joseph Watson video and the what's his name video, Glenn Loury video. Well, that's it. I mean, I think the gun rally advice is a really, and Charles Murray video is really scary, because once you understand the logic of what happens when there is the backlash, you get that famous line by Dennis Murray, no relation to Charles Murray, that, um, what happens when the English population says, well, we're this whole anti-colonial argument. Well, what happens when that anti-colonialism is then that, hey, you people of color coming in England, we English are the original Aboriginal population, and you guys are the colonizers. So GTFO. Okay. What happens when that backlash, that aspect of this, I think Murray hits on in his point. I think that is a very dark moment when that happens, and I mean, it may be inevitable once you've done this. This is once you've set these factors on a trajectory, you're going to create the dynamic that impulse of survival will lead them to act. So this is why I think this is wrong. I think this is a misunderstanding. That you're not going to get this. This only makes sense. This kind of argument only makes sense in a situation where you have a broken system. That is not that a broken system that is broken, and that the people want to have change like this, and that you have a unified people. Okay, but if you don't have a unified people, you have a broken thing. You don't have a civil society or a society of some sort. It's not going to work. That's why all the much of the color revolutions in much of both Eastern Europe and the Muslim lands failed, because they didn't have a civil society. They did not have a pure civic society. They had these tribal groups and local groups that had no commonality, no thing. Ironically, what will happen? Ukraine will. I think that Ukraine has created a civil society. I think the struggle from 2014, the struggle of 2014 onwards to now, with Russians' direct attack on that, the Maiden and things like that, the direct attack, the direct Russian, indirect, first the indirect Russian thing, that, and then later in 2020, the direct Russian assault created a nationalist backlash that created the current nation, that actually established a civic culture, a civic identity that is growing. And yes, there still are people who are still kind of not yet fully involved in resistance to that, particularly in the eastern areas, which are more ethnically, culturally Russian. But even this is generational. And that situation is completely generational, because the younger generations do not see themselves and have no desire to be seen as Russians. They reject the Russian culture, Russian civilization. They may be ethnically, linguistically Russian, but they want to be part of a Western European outlook. And that is why, this is the problem. This is why the Maiden happened. It was generational. And that what happened was then other groups took advantage of it. The ethno-nationalists took advantage. The Ukrainian nationalists and Ukrainian identity movement took advantage of the Maiden in that sense. And then the war veterans and these people, when they saw the violence being done by the regime, you had the neo-Nazis, the soccer hooligans. We talk about the Azov, the role of neo-Nazi Azov soccer thugs on the Ukraine thing. But again, they came in to the fight at Maidan during 2014 because it was their opportunity to bash heads with the cops and it wasn't out of love necessary of the student protesters, but what happened was that the regime, the Yanukovych regime, put all these groups into a common, all these different groups who had really nothing in common into a situation where they had a common group. The war vets, look at this. That's how you understand 2014. And the struggle against Russia started to, they shared, in other words, they built, using a evolutionary model from Robert Axelrod, we can understand what happened at that moment. They had a shared interest, and that shared interest led them to struggle, work together in order to achieve a liberation. And then the Russians came immediately, and that threatened it, and they had to survive it. And what ended up happening is that all of a sudden these people, the very groups who used to hate each other now came to support each other in resistance against this Russian other. Okay, if you understand that, that is the building of the nation in that sense. That is a building of a civic bond. And that over time, that took years. It took 2014, 2015, 16. It kind of slowed down as the Russians kind of lost steam. But then in 2020, it doubled down in that sense. It doubled down with Putin thinking that he was going to win. And there's good reason. I think the reason why he thought he was going to win, because he thought Zelensky was going to fluff. Zelensky, you have to remember, people think that Zelensky was his man. Everyone thought that Zelensky was elected because of the Russian influence and that he was being a Jew with Russianized culture. He was going to be, and also part of the wealthy Jewish communist old cultural elite in that sense, and also economic elite. And he was well off as an entertainer, made money in this entertainment industry. He was not a poor person, that he was able to put together a campaign successfully and play off his image as the TV image of him being president, to be president. It would have been an equivalent of like in the 2004, Martin Sheen decided to run for president after playing the president. Okay, this is the problem. That Martin Sheen's long successful movie as playing the president on the TV series, then turned it and decided to run for president. That's what Zelensky was. But Zelensky's was not a. The difference was Zelensky's was a mocking show, comic one, and whereas Martin Sheen's was kind of a glorified. This is the kind of real liberal. Only if Bill Clinton and was like this, we would, this is the dream. This is the masturbation dream that the left has of their vision and how the Republicans are monsters and the Democrats are these heroic people. When they lie, it's because it's only because they had no choice. Okay, this is and that they're noble and they're good, and the Republicans are always bad and evil. Right? That's the whole. And that was just that's the difference between the two kind of shows. One was purely comic and done for thing. One was kind of overly serious and mellow. Melrose, Tracy, and Washington and Pennsylvania Avenue. Right. What I want to say about this is that this is the way Zelensky is. I think Putin thought Zelensky would fold like a cheap actor. And what happened was he played a different role, and it wasn't that Americans did it. This is a discussion for another thing. I'm way over. I'm 10 minutes over than I was going to plan to go, and so I'm going to stop here. Please like it if you liked it. Yeah, people came and go. People stopped. I should have made it shorter. Well, this is the first one. Take care. Bye bye. Have a good day. Like it if you like it. Don't like it. Don't like it in the video in the review sketch. But comments in there, things you want to hit on. If I do another Saturday or Sunday thing, tell me what you want. Okay, take care. Bye bye.